That's right. It's Thursday. It's the Nudelberg Daily Huddle. It's another day to get up, get your morning started the right way, and get 1% better. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Nudelberg Daily Huddle.
We've been throwing some gas this week. The conversations, the topics, the sports, all great stuff.
I saw Hayden Kassan in the gym this morning, and he was like, "Great huddle yesterday." Yeah. I was like, "Thanks, man. That's awesome." Yeah. Dad did a great job putting the content together.
There you go, man. The old man can still bring it.
And we should definitely give a shout out to Seth, right? Because last night was awesome. Getting to, number one, I hadn't been in Boca in a while, but going up there, getting to see his office, fantastic office. And then you guys went out for dinner and drinks afterwards at Avon Louis. And just a really great conversation and great planning and organization with him. So thanks to Seth for keeping us on the ball.
We preach that you got to have your shit together. And there's a lot of moving pieces in our lives that, in the event something happens, you got to leave a roadmap for people. And so, we kind of laughed about it, but Seth has been my estate attorney since like 2000,
Yeah.
And there have been lots of erases and do-overs, and he was making fun of me during the whole thing. I love the way that he step by step took you guys through almost every part of a 50-page document, which was amazing.
It was fantastic education. It was great learning for both Jake and I. And, it was just great to understand what it is, understand why we do it, understand what's in it, and what the operating orders are for it. And it was just really, really great. And Seth does such a great job of simplifying it, right? He's like, here's a 50-page document. Here's 20 pages. Let me summarize what's happening in these 20 pages for you. Just really great. And then one more shout out is to Christian Castellano for our virtual coffee yesterday. I'm not going to put it out there to the world on what we talked about, but I just want to say kudos to you. Great job, great conversation, and I'm really looking forward to the follow-up. So thank you for that.
So I'm interested, what was your number one aha moment from our time with Seth? Because every time I'm with him, there is an aha moment. What was it?
I don't know that it was an aha moment, or more of a affirmation of like, you can't ever be planned enough, because shit will hit the fan at some point. And even if it's something that you're like preparing for, that's coming, once it happens, the more plans you have in place to make the operations easier are so important, because the things we were talking about, there's no way I'd want to be thinking about that for the first time in that moment. Like, you want to be able to just deal with what's happening and already have the plan in place of what you need to do to move forward. So it's not an easy conversation, because nobody wants to talk about losing people and what happens if this catastrophic thing happens. But because we did, it allows us to be prepared, and then allows us to deal with it much easier in that scenario.
Cool. I love it. That's a great takeaway. For me was the fact that I rest easy today knowing that you have somebody to call.
Yeah.
Which we talk about this all the time. We all run into shit every day, every week, every month. There's no straight roadmap. You're going to run into something you don't know how to do. And it's so awesome to have that one person on speed dial and he used that reference. Just call me Seth.
Well, that's how I ended the conversation with him last night, was like, hey, Seth, like, if God forbid something were to happen tomorrow, I can just call you and come back to this office, and then we're going to figure it out together. Right. And he was like, that's exactly what we're doing here. And I was like, that's all that to me is so much peace of mind. Cause look, I'm not an expert in that. I don't want to be an expert in that. I don't ever have the time to be an expert in that. So you got to have your board of trustees, your circle of people that are experts in those things, that when things happen, you can call them, and they're the people that are going to help direct you and keep you in line.
And to close the loop on that, certainly a shout out to Seth Ellis if you want his information, just to talk through your planning highly recommended. But we do have, the A team, if you will, between Sam and Seth and Charles Cartwright, keeping us, moving in the right direction, doing the right things. Reached out to my friend Gino Valdez. He's helping us with the new business. And he was like, "You're the man. I'm there." So, so great stuff. Let's get kicking.
Let's get to some wake up music, and then let's get to the show.
Wake up, everybody! Get up! Get up! Get up! Get up! Wake up! Come on! Come on! Wake up, everybody! Teach a new way. Maybe then they'll listen what you have to say. Wake up, everybody! No more sleeping in bed. No more back to thinking, time for thinking ahead. Come on now.
All right, so
the boat boss chimes in, and I recommend this to all of our friends and clients. Have your own personal board of advisors, people who are specialists, who when you pick up the phone, whether you're paying them or they're just on the hook, what an unbelievable thing to do for yourself. So thanks for sharing that information, Kim. I know it was effective.
Good to see Kim in the huddle. Wasn't sure if she was still here. Hadn't seen her name in a while. So good to see her here. But so as happens on this show, sometimes you get a day where there is absolutely nothing to talk about. There are no national days. There are no birthdays. There's nothing out there that's going to be that spark or that foundation of the rest of the content for the show. So what do you do when that happens? You get creative. Shay, show me the new segment of the show.
And the producer does a fine job again.
These are the Huddle headlines. So what we're going to do is we're going to pull some headlines out of the news. We did this before, and I got some really great feedback on it. Lori actually said to me, "Love the Huddle headlines" the other day. And I was like, oh, I love that tag name for it. Like, that's so perfect for the segment. So the first thing we're going to talk about is Forbes put out an article. Obviously, the Great Resignation is something that is a very popular topic that everybody's talking about. But they put it out an article about why employees are quitting to start their own business. There's a crazy stat that says 32% of Americans are quitting their jobs to start a business. That's a third of the population that's choosing to jump off the ladder that they're on because they're not sure it's leaning against the right building, so they're tired of climbing it, right? And get into their own lane and do what they want to do. Can you tell me what you think the number one reason is that people are quitting to open their own business?
I would have to say control of their own destiny.
Very similar to what it actually is. It's be their own boss, right? Control their own destiny, be able to be in the driver's seat and have control over what their trajectory is, how much work they put into something, and what it is that they want to do.
So the challenge with that, and statistically, most small businesses fail early on because they're not set up with the right skill sets. So it's easy to make the decision, I'm going to pull the cord and jump out of the plane. But if you don't know what you're doing, this is the time to get upskill, get better, have the resources lined up. It's so apropos because we are building another business. We will launch in November. There's so many moving parts. Jake will take a senior role in that new company. And boy, did he grab the bull by the horns yesterday. We had a meeting, me, him, and Shay, which will be the operational team for that business. I got to tell you, man, you can't fake passion. You can't fake desire. You can't. He was just so in it. I was so proud of him. So that's what I think people are stirred by. And then he said to me, he goes, "Dad, the last year really, really prepared me for this." So, just think about it before you do it. I think a lot of people are jumping ship and they will wind up back on the mothership.
So Lori hits 2 dingers with her comments. The first comment is, so how do we as employers give them that feeling? Because I want to go back up to Christian Castellano, who says, taking my ladder to a building that allows me to climb my own ladder. Exactly. So, and then jump back down to Lori's comment where she says, all of our project/program directors are the CEO of their own company. That's really what it's about. And so, Lori, when you ask the question, how do we make employees feel like they have control of their destiny? Why don't you ask them what they want to do? Far too often, we as leaders think that we know what's best for that person. And we're like, well, they're in this role, so here's what their trajectory should be. So we lay it out for them and don't ever think to have the conversation at first with, what do you really like to do? Right. And that's a hard conversation for people in organizations that we're working with, of saying, look, you put this person in a position where they think they want to be, but when you ask them what they really like to do and you focus in on the things they're passionate about, it's not in alignment with the role at all. And so it creates a problem on both sides.
So, it's so interesting when you dig into this conversation, because when, let's look at the scenario of somebody who leaves the organization. Most of the time, that's an adversarial conversation. Most people can't sleep the night before because they're going in to tell their boss they're leaving, because their boss is going to jump down their shit and say, what do you mean, how can you leave, and whatever. When you turn that on its head and say, if this is the right move for you, I endorse it. What can I do to help? And you create that culture. Like Gary Vee does an amazing job. Claude Silver, who is his chief heart officer, when somebody is not a fit there, whether they decide or the employee decide, they actually aggressively help them find the next role somewhere else, because they are planting people who have a positive thing to say. And so what's wrong with corporate America, so to speak, is that, the attitude towards the employee is like, you're my employee, you're my slave. You'll do what I tell you to do, and I'm paying you to do that. And people are going, I don't want that environment. I want to be in the boat with you, right? Now, that doesn't mean we have the same takeaways, but if you let people in on the conversation of what we're doing, why we're doing it, who we're doing it with, and create that sense of everybody is rowing the boat, God, those are healthy, efficient, energetic cultures.
And you create ownership with the people of those responsibilities. Then, like Lori said, they're the CEOs of their program. They can't just go do whatever they want. They have to clear it with the board of trustees, which is Lori and the rest of the leadership team within the organization. But if they are a project or a program director, they're looking at it like, this is my business. What are the operations that go into this? What do I need? What are the resources I need for this? And what an incredible organization to create of ownership of that little segment of, this is my little, living and breathing ecosystem. And I get to carry this to the top of me and say, look at what we're building. How does it get more fun than that in work?
So Keith said, this is a perfect opportunity for one-on-one meetings. Like, where do you see yourself? What are you passionate about? I can remember being in meetings with a whiteboard, and we were creating the org structure, and we're going, we'll just take him and pluck him over here and put him there, totally disrupting his life, his or her life, with what we wanted. It doesn't work that way anymore. That's why people are saying, I can either do it myself better, or I can find another organization that it's going to allow me. So pigeonholing people, the org chart is so unique, putting people, the book Good to Great, Jim Collins writes, putting the right people on the bus and in the right seats. Right. It's a difficult thing to do, man. Plug and play and moving around, but you find football teams, baseball teams, basketball teams, when they have the right people doing the right things, that's where the 10X comes from.
1,000%. And that comes from the conversation, like you talked about, in the one-on-one of when you ask somebody, what are you passionate about? It's great for them to tell you, but it's your responsibility as the leader to have had visibility into what they're doing And there are times that people will tell you, look, what I want to do is be in this leadership role, even though when you watch them do their job, they're not passionate about doing any of the things that a leader does. They're passionate about doing all of the other things. And it's your job as a leader to say, okay, I hear you saying that, but when I watch you in the field, I see you really enjoying doing this. I see you really enjoying doing that. Now, my eyes could be deceiving me, but when I bring up those things to you, how do you feel about doing those things? And they go, oh, you know what? I really do love those aspects of my job. And you go, well, doing this may take you away from that, and that might hurt you. How would you feel about losing some of those? Oh, I don't want to do that. So now we uncovered what you really want to do. Let's build a roadmap for that, because that's going to make you and the organization twice as successful.
So, I mean, we can get personal here like we do. Similar situation with Jake. We designed a role for Jake that was not ideal for what he wants to do, how he wants to learn. So while he is learning, we are shifting his responsibilities into another role that he is going to explode. I watched it yesterday and know that because we listened and paid attention to where he wants to be, he's a true leader. Football coaching, does that. You lead groups, you create organization. He's perfect for this new role, where a straight out biz dev role was not necessarily where he wants to be. We listened, we delivered, and it doesn't always work that easy, but I'm super excited.
Part of that, and so that's the difference between young talent and like that middle talent, and then veteran talent. You got rookies. You got people that have been around for a few years and have some experience, and then you've got vets that have been in the game forever. You would never treat a vet the way you would a rookie. And so for young people that are talented, it's so important to push them into roles, because they may tell you they don't want to do something, but until they do it, they don't really know. And so it was important for us to set Jake on a roadmap to do certain things, and then have constant and continual dialogue about, number one, how are you doing with it? Number two, how do you feel about it? And number three, now that you're in it and doing it, do you see that as a future for yourself? Or where would you see yourself wanting to do something else? And that constant dialogue allows us to not get a disgruntled employee, allows them to have freedom over what they're doing and what they want to do, and creates a better working environment.
So I love the way the Huddle responds to these kind of dialogues. Mark and I are having them all the time because of all the organizations that we're involved in, all the leaders. But Christian says, did being a parent help hone your leadership skills? I think the short answer is absolutely yes. But it's such a learning curve, because nobody gave me a rule book that said, hey, here's how to be a great parent. Here's how to be a great dad. You just sort of go with it. You do your best. You skin your knees. You look back. You reflect, and so it's an evolution that gets you to someplace. I'm still evolving as a business professional, still evolving as a parent to these guys, as a partner. And one of the things we're talking to lots of companies about is that there's so many roles that someone plays. You don't take into consideration that the person that's your employee, that's one role out of a dozen things that they're doing, taking care of a parent, taking care of a child, taking care of their spouse, significant other, a friend, a daughter, think of all of the things that people do that inform their behavior. That's why when people jump out, they go, I know what I need to do, and I can manage all the roles properly. Because if somebody interferes with that, that's where the big fuck you comes from. Is like, you're telling me I can't take care of my parent? I'm,
right.
out.
The number one quality, or the number one priority to being a leader, is willing to be responsible for failure. Period. I don't care if it's on a basketball team. I don't care if it's on a football team. I don't care if it's in a business, if it's on a team within the business. If you're going to be a leader, the only thing you have to be willing to do is be responsible for the failure. It's easy to be a leader when you're winning and things are good. Yeah, sure, it's great. I'm the leader. I'm doing all of this. But if you're willing to own it when it fails, and you're willing to step out and take responsibility, that doesn't mean be vocal. That doesn't mean some of the traits that people equate with leaders. All it means is that you're willing to take responsibility. And then the development of that leadership comes from two ways: learning from experience and learning from either your coaching, learning from your reading, all of the other tools and your trainings that allow you to develop as a leader. But that experience is so important. There's no way I would be able to talk about leadership the way that I am now had it not been for my 10 years of being involved in a leadership role within an organization and being responsible for failures, being responsible for successes, and learning all of the things that come along with that in that role.
So, that we could go on all day. This conversation is just fantastic. There are good and bad CEOs. There are good and bad employees. There are employees who, no matter what you do, are not going to be part of the bigger picture. It's just not their style. They're better off served doing their own thing, finding another role. So I think it's not one blanket answer. There is no one solution to all this.
Correct.
I think, for me, the way I grew all of my businesses was I looked at every single employee as a separate business entity with a P&L. I'm paying you X. What am I getting in return? If you manage your business on that level, that micro level, whether it's sales or service or whatever, if you're not making profit to grow the business per individual times 10, 20, 30 employees, guess
Bad
what?
business.
That's why businesses go out of business.
Bad business.
Bad business. You just, we'll do more. No, you can't do more. You got to fix it on a granular level. And it comes down to taking care of the individual. Every single person is, Mark Nudelberg Inc. And that's exactly how we operate. Even though we operate in a house together, it's the individual that's responsible for producing their own value. If you go out and do it on your own, it's the same thing. I prefer doing it on my own with a team of people. I'm responsible for my output, but I like the camaraderie. I like the teamwork, the loyalty. I like when I get my face bashed in, I got somebody to go to and cry with,
Yeah.
So, people who are running out to do their own thing, it's not what it appears to be. And we had this conversation with Seth last night about growing, numbers of attorneys, doesn't make for a happier business. You got to really nail it at the beginning. And when you get good at duplicating that, that's where all the riches are.
Fantastic conversation. So the other 4 reasons, and I'm going to skim through them and then I'm going to leave us with our motivational music, but I want to do something I'm passionate about. I want more flexibility. I want to build real wealth. I want to fill a need in my community. When you talk about those 4 other things, that's getting into that person's why. That's figuring out what makes them tick and then aligning their roles and responsibilities with the things that are important to them. You want to build great individuals. You want to build great teams. That is the key.
To Jeremy's point, let's go overtime because I have a really significant point.
So then let's go to morning motivational music. Then we'll go overtime and then we'll come back.
Great.
I can't wait till I get you on the floor, good looking. Hey, going hot, so hot, just like an oven. And I'll burn myself, I just had to touch it. But it's so fine, and it's all mine. Hey, baby, we don't mind all the watching. Cause if they study close, real close, they might learn something. She ain't nothing but a little doozy when she does it. She's so fine tonight. And as long as I got my suit and tie, I'ma leave it all on the floor tonight. And you got fixed up to the nines. Let me show you a few things. All dressed up in black and white, and you're dressed in that dress I like. Love is swinging in the air tonight. Let me show you a few things. Let me show you a few things. Show you a few things about love. Now we're in the swing of love. Let me show you a few things. Show you a few things about love. Hey.
Love me some overtime. Shay, give
Let's
me
go.
overtime.
and we'll go to overtime.
So here's a really significant thing that you were closing with, that I have a conversation with people all the time because it's significant in terms of how you market yourself. So whether you work for somebody or you work for yourself, you still have the same challenge, which is to market yourself, create awareness. And I ask people, what are you passionate about? And they go, what do you mean? Well, I really like to take care of my kids, and I'm really involved in my church, and like they're like embarrassed about that. And I'm going, right. That's exactly a loyal. That's a thing that you should be so proud of, because when we show people, when you share that, you connect with other people where family is that why.
Yep.
They will support you building that audience, that tribe of people who have made a decision to take care of their kids first. Because guess what? Clients fire you all the time. Your kids don't. Bam.
I love it. Mic drop. Fantastic conversation today. Love that one Huddle headline carried us for the entire show. But thank you guys for being with us this morning. Thank you guys for all of the conversation, the comments, great feedback back and forth. Let's get after it. Let's get down to business.
And tomorrow's your last show.
Let's go.
Please don't worry about me. I'm about to let my heart speak. My friends keep telling me to leave this. So let's get down to business. Let's get down to business. Give you one more night to get this. We've had a